Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirit Saga video. And today we're going to be talking about the bounce house, or the you can't have a board, or just, Turborex turned out to be a good guy. So today we have Primitive Kage's version of the deck. This is what was used in the video. Obviously, it has changed quite a bit since then. This is like an early testing video, but I still want to at least, work on this, get it out there. And the games do highlight just how good these cards can be themselves. So this list in particular, you might have noticed, started with a white aggro core that can shift to more of a mid-range or late-game style when you still have things like Durmdine and Elephant. So there's going to be a lot of variations, right? We have like Ryan Matt's list from the top 16 or top 8, I think it was actually, of Palm Springs. We have some other lists. I played a similar, I shouldn't say similar, but like more of a tempo heavy style of white with even more bounce and even more like temporary removal last night at locals, and went 3-0 with it. There's obviously been more on BSS top decks. So a lot of people are kind of coming together and realizing that white isn't just this all-in aggro or all-in control style of color. There is something that you can play in this more middle ground and really leans into the let's just temporarily remove the board, get more bips on our symbols, I should say, on board than our opponent, right? Pips, symbols, use your own terminology there. And really just try to accelerate our gameplay in that way, where our opponent is maybe spending a couple turns to rebuild their board. Now suddenly we have an Elephant and then like an Odin to back it up, and being able to continue to bounce their board and just chip away from them not having a lot of defenses, right? So that is a overview of the list overall, but now let's get into the individual cards themselves, right? So Dual Gun Mech Lord Durmdine, rest in peace, our friend, if you read his flavor text. Obviously, very good card. I expect this to be one that, even if mechas don't get a lot of support in set 2, right? Obviously, we have Axe Spider, we have Mothership. There is some type of archetype that wants to be discovered there. Durmdine himself is just that guy, right? A lot of people are using this card now. It's made its appearance in a lot of wildly different lists. It turns out just having an unblockable unit can be very, very good and end the game when they usually get like a little bit, clunked up. In the same way that yellow is now going to be utilizing Dual Eagle for some of these unblockable swinging turns, which of course is going to be good for the game, because then it requires people to kind of change your list and kind of adapt to the meta. Maybe you put more Dream Bombs in. Maybe you have a certain type of removal that you're looking for. Maybe you need those volcanic breaks, because remember, a lot of times, like, Durmdine himself is very expensive, and when people are trying to end the game, most of the time, obviously if they expect it, they'll play around it, sort of thing, but 99 times out of 100, they're going to just have this guy at 6k and just try to swing out and close the game that way. So there is a couple more opportunities for us to get new spells or new other ways to interact with it. Dream Bomb obviously just helping you buy a turn, and especially if it comes out of burst, right? Getting to bounce a Durmdine and a problematic Nexus together in a turn can really, really help out your strategy. But that said, Durmdine, if you haven't picked up your SPRs already, probably just go ahead and do so, because this card is so flexible, and it is definitely one that I think is going to be sticking around for a bit, right? The effect is just very good, and Nexus will be very important once we get blue. So it's really interesting to see where this card's going to be at by the time set 3 rolls around, just from a, what other key spirits did white get, because blue is going to be like, hey, look at my 5 Nexus, and then white's going to be like, oh, good thing I have this in my sideboard. You're dead because you played all those, right? So I really, really love this card from a future design perspective, and kind of what it means to automatically balance stuff that we're getting later, if that makes sense. So overall, very solid card. A lot of people are splashing it. Unblockable is good. Getting into Dinosaur Harrier Turborex, right? This is really what we want to spend a lot of time talking on. And again, I posted my list on the YouTube, was it community section? Whatever it's called. And also on my Twitter, at Cosmic Plays. I posted my list. I love this card, but we also need to just take a moment and just kind of like take a step back, because if you're in the Discord, or if you've been on Twitter and seeing some of those conversations pop up, yes, Turborex is a really, really good card in certain metas or in certain matchups, and it is absolutely dead in others, right? So this is a card itself that really wants to lean into that more mid-range strategy and really have a slower deck played against it, right? So as you're going to see in the yellow matchup that we have recorded, and then also as I played Fable Beast in the finals last night, Turborex and Dream Bomb is a combo that if you get to live that dream, and again, it's not hard to pull that together, yellow's board just gets a hard reset, and it's very, very difficult for them to come back in a meaningful way, especially if they have a lot of those fabled beasts that are, like Ervita and Hippocampo that have a significantly higher cost to them. So just resetting the board a couple times is enough that I found out to chip through the game. And then you still have Odin on top of that, which is going to be bouncing more stuff. So both of sides of this card are very, very important. And I do like that it goes up to 8,000 at 3 cores, which has been expensive a couple times. Like the turn that you want to play it, when at least in my version of the deck, when I was trying to play it and have Axe Spider on the board, that's 6 cores that you're committing to 2 cards. And if they're going wide enough, unless you have a Suppression or Absolute Ice Shield, you're probably just dead. And that feels pretty bad. But Turborex does let you have control on what they're attacking with first for its first ability, which has been quite strong. And especially stuff like getting to pop a Freeze-Tall when you want it to, or popping a Ervita when they maybe don't have a lot of value. There's a lot this card can do. And then when the Spirit attacks at 2 and 3, just getting to bounce anything that does other than that has Ascend is very, very strong, right? So at least in set 1, what is it? Nova in this card. I think there are only 2 cards that can't be bounced, if I'm not mistaken. But this does give me a very strong feeling that we're going to see more Ascend stuff in set 2, probably with the Curse Lords or something within the Curse Lord package that like sets them up. So I would not be surprised if this gets a little bit weaker from a key spirit standpoint. But I think that first part is just so good that is enough to disrupt a lot of boards. So again, Turborex has been absolutely insane for me. Obviously, we're testing in very specific metas right now. This is a card that I definitely rated a lot lower early on, I'll be totally honest. And it's one that I would still rate a lot lower if you're seeing a lot of red aggro and white aggro in your local metas. But if the game slows down and if we get more mid-range value threats, like Turborex, I think just goes up in value a lot because he's very, very good at what he wants to be doing. And then talking more about like your opponent just not getting to have a board, right? So Valkyrie Mist, Odin Type X, and Dream Bomb. This is really going to be your tempo enablers, making sure that your opponent has to hard reset their board, paying a lot of cores for all their stuff while you're slowly building out your own reduction strategy that then tops into something like an Elephant or an Enterprise that you can just pay the 4 on and have a much stronger board presence than your opponent, right? Again, a big problem here is that white doesn't have a lot of draw, so you need to put a lot of value into your sticky threats, which the one, that sticks out here, right, is probably Valkyrie Mist. So at 3K, it just dies to Burning Force, dies to a Sneeze, but it does help remove something. And what's really important is that there are turns here because it only costs 1, where you can play a Valkyrie Mist, bounce something, ascend off of it with Turborex, bounce something else, and then heaven forbid you have like an Odin Type X or something, right? So you're suddenly very quickly bouncing 3 things off their board while still having a few things that are up, especially if you have a Nexus to restand Odin. That's obviously going to feel really, really great. And then the Dream Bomb I had mentioned just for Nexus or for Spirits that might be causing you a little bit of problem. So these 3 I expect to see in a lot more lists going forward, if not all white lists in some number of them. Obviously Dream Bomb doing very good in this current meta. So I really like all 3 of these, and I think I was like 4, 4, and 4 in my list. Pretty sure it was 4 all. And obviously Prim again had a slightly different list, but I still want to showcase his list up front because it's for the video's sake. But I think for like going forward, these are going to be the core package a lot of people kind of go back to. And then, of course, we got to talk about the spells. These ones are mostly a given, right? Suppression, very good card. Period. Everyone says like, oh, it's an aggro meta. You got to always have this card. Like just in general, right? A 3K battle trick is a lot. And also just the ability to block while rested is very, very significant. So this is a card that I'm sure, Rex and white aggro or not, like this is just a fine card. Suppression itself is a very good card. Let's make that absolutely clear. Play the card. It is good. There should be 4 copies somewhere in your 60 card pile. The one that I keep going back and forth on, and like it's either so insane for me or it's the deadest card and I can never line it up perfectly the way I want to because I know my opponent's going to Ice Shield and then just break up the combo, but Regain. So for just the cost of 1, right? You're always going to have 3 pips on board. It's really important for that. But for the cost of 1, select one of your spirits that is currently not attacking refresher. So this works on block, and that's really important for things like Odin, for maybe something if we get a better value like Enterprise, if you just want to have a bigger blocker. There is a lot of value that this can be doing for you. And then also on attack, right, with Turborex, now you can attack with Turborex, bounce something, attack with Odin, bounce something. In that attack, restand Turborex. Your opponent probably Ice Shields like at that point, but if they're burning an Ice Shield early, hey, that's probably fine. But it does help give you that extra little bit of removal for a very, very, very cheap value. So in my list from last night, I didn't include it, but it's one that I know I need to find room for it because it just has been I've seen it do some very crazy things. So I do like Regain. I think it's a card that needs to be explored more, and it's definitely one that obviously white aggro uses it because they want to be very explosive, but I think it is a card that needs to be utilized a bit more in mid-range and control strategies just for how good it has been in a couple different views, and it's still just trying to find its right, 3 months later, it's still trying to find its right home in various white based decks. And so with that, here's just one last look at the list overall. And again, we do have a game coming up here where, yes, he only does have the one Turborex here and has more on the sideboard, but it does very nasty things against my yellow luster deck. So with that, thank you for tuning in for another Versus video. I hope you enjoy the games. And of course, if there's a certain brew that you want to see on the channel, definitely let me know. But with that out of the way, let's get into the games. All right, for our first match, we're going to have Luster up against the Turborex build. Starting off with the Freezatol just being it's a pretty standard opener for yellow. It's going to cycle itself if we have to block, but otherwise just want to get that early symbol on board for reduction. Playing the Raccoon Guard here is just great as a big body. Vanillas, both out of white and red, just have that 5k threshold, which is very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with early. Playing out second Freezatol so that when it dies, we can hopefully draw 2. And we have an Erevitad just trying to go wide, get a board established, and it's also going to let us bring back the Freezatol when we have the cores to pay for it on the next turn. So we're just trying to threaten like, hey, we're going to block, we're going to get some value, we're going to try to cycle through our deck to find some answers and go from there. Force of the Steel Leaves is an interesting one because of the level 2. Obviously, they can help against red if you want to try to set up more Nexus cards, but ultimately just going to be using here for the bounce effect. So here, Freezatol is going to die. It's going to see itself dying as well as the other Freezatol on board. So we're going to get to draw 2, leading into a Blessed Cathedral. So now we have an option to get some ramp going. Cathedral, if we get it to level 2, is going to help us draw extra cards. So really just playing the stall out, and hopefully we get something on value here quickly for drawing through our deck. And here's where we're going to start to see a very early Turborex, and also one of the main reasons why I've gone up on Dream Bombs in my deck, just to try to handle it early, because this is where you're going to start to see it just start to really run away with things. So here we're going to just block with the Freezatol to ramp a core and draw a card from himself dying. And now we're looking at this AK body, even in Luster, where it's like, okay, cool, this is what, 3 angelic pressures that I need to just answer this one Turborex, and that's a very rough spot to be in. And as I've mentioned on Twitter or other places, I am trying to play this is my 2-drop version of Luster, where you have a lot of the early game stall and cycle through that the normal God Piece package will play with all your 2-drops, Freezatol, then Cathedral, hopefully cycling more. Like here we're putting the cores on the Cathedral to hopefully draw as well. And it can just really make it difficult for us here, because now it's like, okay, well, we have Cathedral, we want to do stuff with Cathedral, and then he's going to have the Dream Bomb on top of it, which is going to reset our Erevitov, reset our Cathedral. So, I mean, that's 5 cores just gone right there. And now he still has that Turborex on board, which is going to reset us all the way back down to just a single Nexus. So here I do think that, and there goes the bounce back to hand, right? Like, this is a very scary board for pretty much any white deck, right? If you lean more aggro, if you lean more towards a mid-range variant, like, the yellow player is never feeling great from this board state, because as you saw a few of the things from my hand, like, it's just very expensive to get this back on board. And yeah, a little bit of a misplay on my end. I expected more of the Valkyrie Mist and the big mecha guy. I keep forgetting his name, but it's a 3k bounce. I thought he was using that variant because that's something that we've come up in testing is also very good against yellow, it turns out, which both have on summon. So yeah, that's a hard telegraph for me that's a Star Blessed draw, and definitely a play error on my mistake, but it just depends on where some of these more white mid-range style of lists go. That I do think that 6-cost mecha is a very reasonable card to play right now with all the Fable Beasts running around, but ultimately he didn't have it, and I should have just played it and hopefully draw into something else. So here we spend a lot of cores, get some stuff back on the board, trying to figure out the best way to play around this Turborex, I'm just being perfectly honest. And so we're just going to go ahead and swing at the Caladrius here, make him think that we have some kind of Luster action. And here I actually completely forgot that Librarian also works on block. So definitely a play mistake on my end. And just also just remembering, hey, yeah, that card has more text, it turns out. So my Caladrius, I think I had something in my hand. I don't remember what it was, but like even if I would have played it, it would have died, and then it just would have went to the graveyard as well. So I just decided to take my L there and do it. So here we do see the correction on the Arc, which is giving my Caladrius a 2K body. So it will trade. So I guess this wasn't the Angelic Pressure then, because I could have just played it there. But something that I had some luster play that I unfortunately don't remember now. And then we saw that we did kill his Librarian, so the Flying Arc does go back to my hand off of the Force of Steel Leaves trigger. And then, as I mentioned here, it's just going to be Turborex. We're going to bounce another thing back to hand, and then we have the Elephant. So this is where, when we were playing it, this is a video from last week, but I finally got around to editing it. This is where I decided, like, you know what, this is actually really scary what it can do. And I get if you want to have a lot of the early 2-cost stuff just to, or low to the ground aggro stuff that White can provide just to be a more aggressive opener, but I really love these lines that, you know, you can reset their board, Turborex is going to get value turn over turn, and now you have an Elephant on top of it. So now we're getting to attack with Turborex and restand him and force our opponent to crash into our 10k Elephant every single turn. And again, against other mid-range strategies where you're trying to play these 5 drops and 6 drops, if you have only a single symbol on board, you're not feeling too great about it. And this is where I just, you know, the Dream Bomb, thinking about back at the match, it's like, on what turn did I lose this game, right? And it was absolutely the Dream Bomb turn, which was super early, to be fair, but then he just got to completely run away with the game from there. And here you just see me trying to rebuild the board. Like, hey, I need my Nexus, I need my symbols, I need my reductions. Luster as a deck does require quite a bit of setup, and you just, that's a luxury you do not have with some of these new white decks that are getting brought into the meta. And here we are forced to play our Dream Bomb because we can't go into combat. We didn't have enough to, you know, luster and get all the value off of it. So we have to force it back to his hand. Hope he just doesn't have another good Ascend value here. But he's going to have Odin anyways, and like, hey, so you didn't like me bouncing other stuff? Well, Odin's going to bounce it anyways, and he's just going to do that work. And of course, he does have Elephant here, which is going to restand anyways, but the Spring of Norn really going to allow him to restand the Odin as well as the Force Steel Leaf. So again, just complete control that he had over that game, and Dream Bomb and Turborex just being a nightmare of a combo. Going into another quick game, we have Nova build, which is I forget if this is my Andromedeos build or not, but I really think Nova is an interesting spot, coming back with looking at how Fabled Beasts have become so popular, and well, Nova just farms that matchup all day long, and twice on Sundays it turns out. So I'm curious to see how those are going to adapt, but of course Nova decks do struggle greatly against the aggro White and also the Rex decks, which can just apply too much pressure before you can find your combo. Now, if they have the combo in the top 10 cards, you're probably just dead, but, you know, it's not consistent enough. So here we're going to take some values, Flamefish, just to try to stabilize the board. And my mid-range strategy for this list has really just been, I want the Arcs, Flamefish, and the Dino Man, the 6k on 2, so that some way between those 3 cards, my opening turns are always going to be awkward for my opponent. It's going to force the game to slow down, and then hopefully we can build into our board to get the combo, and sometimes you just have to hard cast Nova. And here we're just trying to figure out how we battle through this 4k blocker, which is good enough, it turns out. And then follows up with just a 5k on attack from the Bullet Ray, forcing us to take another life. But again, as the Nova deck, yeah, we don't mind taking life early. We want to have the extra cores. We are playing a more expensive deck, and it does help us that if we find the Big Bang energy early enough, right, we can just vomit stuff on the board and try to stabilize that way. You don't always have to go into your Nova combo. Sometimes just putting a bunch of Star Dragons on the board is enough. So speaking here of just trying to gum up the board, we have our Flamefish, we have Arc that's getting a little bit more power on him, but again, just really trying to slow down the board where we can until we can find our Nova or some other pieces. Peggy coming online with Armor Red, being very good in this matchup as well, because now we can't just burn it off Flamefish and, well, burn it off anything, and, you know, in our entire deck. So Andromeda making a guest appearance. This is a small misplay on our end. I meant to move over the last 2 cores from Arc because they don't do anything here realistically. And I want to put the Confront on Andromeda because we need to start chipping away at his board. But I didn't, and that is a huge mistake on my end, to be fair. But it wouldn't have changed out kind of the next couple turns here and why we ultimately, you know, struggled into this matchup. So here he's going to have the Elephant online, which, again, we got that 1 value, has to maybe pay 1 here. But ultimately, now we're in a position where, yes, we have Confront as an option. Yes, we are going to be bigger than his Elephant. But we're also just then going to give him 3 cards and 3 cores. It's not a great spot to be in either. That said, Andromeda has been doing, in other, you know, builds of red that we've been working on, Andromeda's been doing a lot of work again. Yes, Star Blessed Draw is still a thing, but having both the flexibility of 3k burn versus Nexus Destruction and having quite easily an 11k or 12k Confront attacker is very, very, very good. Unless your opponent has an Elephant and is walling you off, unfortunately. So here Prim has to decide, like, at some point, you know, we should just go wide, but the Arc is kind of hurting our own strategy here where the Flamefish can't, you know, ever attack because they're under that threshold. Here we do have the Star Blessed Draw, so I knew that in this matchup in particular, we're going to slow down the board enough. He has to try to play some of his bounce effects, so I felt more confident on Star Blessed getting value here, and also, well, this deck can struggle greatly if you don't have some kind of draw power behind it. So again, Turborex is going to get in, bounce our Andromeda, reset our board. We do sacrifice a Flamefish to, you know, kill something while it can. And on the next turn, I mean, this is very scary. Now he's having a Turborex and Elephant refresh. It's not like we have a really good, you know, 10k burn or anything like that, unless we play the Nova. So here we do just hard cast the Nova itself. You know, sometimes you just gotta pay the full cost and go for it. So we do heal up to 5, which is great. We are now able to remove his Turborex, which is great. Problem is he is still showing us a 7k Elephant, which unless I sacrifice my 2 spirits here, he is threatening a suppression and, you know, trading with my Nova, and then he's getting all the value off Elephant. So that is awful for us. So there, I forget what was in my hand at this time, but maybe I should have just built out another turn or 2 to get Nova on board so I could still maintain something, because this puts us in a really, really, really bad spot if he ever finds another Dream Bomb that we're now reset all the way back to 1. So Turborex cannot bounce Nova, which is really, really important, but a lot of white decks going forward are going to have, you know, Dream Bombs, and those are still just good enough, it turns out. Here we're using our Volcanic Break, which is now powered down thanks to not having our Soul Core anymore, but we have at least now a, you know, 12k or 13k Nova that can start chipping through the board, even if that Elephant is going to be, again, quite scary for us. So slight misplay. I should have just started with the Star Blessed Draw there, right? We already had 2 reduction on board. But here I was just trying to go wide, figure out what would work for us to, you know, get more established. The second Scorched Battlefield is definitely overkill at this point. My hand probably didn't have much else going for it, admittedly. But here we're going to attack, try to get the Odin out, and really just trying to force that Elephant to not be in a good spot through battle tricks and going wide. And here I could have swung, right, with all 3, put him down to 1, but I don't have anything. I don't have a burst set, right? I could just die on the crackback. And here he has the Durham Dyna while I have 2 up. So the first one he doesn't have to worry about. And he's now showing us on the next turn, if he wants to, he can just go double unblockable. So here's what we were talking about. You know, shouldn't he just make these 2 unblockable, push me down to 1? And he decides to keep it. So this is a huge misplay right here on my end. I should not have taken that second block. If I'm dead in 2 turns anyways, I get I was just trying to preserve my life total. But I really just need to set up something to go wide, and that 1 extra spirit did matter. So not a good trade there. I should just try to, like, go for the win on the next turn, showing that he doesn't have a burst, and we are still looking at 3 life. And here we're just trying to figure out, like, okay, what can what can go wide enough for us, what's going to get us value, and where can we, you know, try to draw some cards. So here we're going to have to kill the elephant. We can't just let him have that. He is going to get to draw 3, which feels terrible. He takes it from life. We're going to draw 2 off the Scorched Battlefield, and another small misplay by me. Arc can still attack here, and I should have forced the attack to draw 2 more cards, because if he blocks and Arc dies, then my Dino Man can swing and get 2 more card draws, right? Like, there is almost a 0% chance that we're not just dead on the next turn here because he has the Durham Dino, because he's going to be able to draw those 3 cards off Elephant. Like, we had to absolutely draw 2 more cards there during that turn to try to find an absolute Ice Shield or something to, you know, stall us out. But again, the Dream Bomb is going to bounce Nova. You know, and that guy is just far too expensive to bring back. And at this point, he's just able to go wide and have enough for it. So here we're just talking again. He's not feeling confident with his hand. He could have just, you know, made it unblockable, gone for the chip if he's only attacking with 1 anyways. But he wanted another 10k blocker on board, and well, we're at 3 anyways. So Burning Force, it's going to kill 1, but ultimately, I mean, this is not... There's not much that brings us back from this point with showing the Durham and getting Nova bounce back to our hand. So we draw 1 more card just to see what we're at. Try to get a Star Blessed, draw 2. I think there's like Andromeda into Nova was like my last play, but then the Durham Dyna just has value in making unblockable when he can for sure go for it when we don't have Ice Shield. So this was a little bit of a feels bad of, hey, like, yeah, we just don't have any Ice Shield whatsoever. That's just some of the games you play. But I thought this was still a very good showcase on Turborex still being able to control the board, as well as the Dream Bomb just being able to set back Nova so much that I think this white deck definitely has some legs to it that are worth checking out. So here's the suppression. I'm dead on board. There's nothing else I could do. I try to go wide, just get some more card draw, and there was the Ice Shield that we needed to kind of reestablish a Nova, but never happened for us. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the games, and let me know again in the comments what type of videos that you want to see next for any kind of deck profiles and stuff like that, but lots more to come. So with that, stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.